That will just be cut out.
Yep.
So. So we're gonna.
Good morning. We're so glad to see all of you here today, and I know we're all looking forward to learning things that the knowledge we'll put to use at the end of the month when there's more things going on. So, don't want to take up any more time.
Great, thank you. We just have a couple announcements. So there is a New Canaan Beautification Week members only tour of the Fireflies Sanctuary on June 22nd. Registration is required. You guys sell out all the time now for this, so please.
Yeah, we'll talk about the details.
We'll talk about the details. Please see the newsletter to sign up. Also, just want to let everyone know that there's a flower arranging workshop 101 Thursday, July 6th. Please look at the newsletter to sign up. That's with Ty Tan and Faith Kirchhoff.
The last one was fabulous, so don't miss it.
And also, on the newsletter, there's registration for the informal garden tours, thanks to Nancy Malling. They'll be in June, July, and August. Spaces are limited to 35 members, so please go to the newsletter and register, and details will be sent a day or two before the garden tours. And with that, Susan would just like to make an announcement, and then Laura Auld, who's dressed fantastically, is going to come up and introduce. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here on behalf of the Garden Club. Most of you, or many of you may know there's a Garden Club tour tomorrow, Gardens in Bloom. The good news is it's sold out. Good for the Garden Club. They sold 500 tickets. If you did not get a ticket, I just want to let you know that part of the tour includes the Waveney gardens that are maintained by the Garden Club. So that's the parterre, the beautiful peony walk, and the walled garden. Looking really great because they're on the tour. So I strongly recommend to go see them. Also, what I'm really here to say is that we've organized a conservation corner just outside the walled garden, and the club has invited 11 local nonprofits who have a mission of either gardening or conservation and environmental education. And the New Canaan Beautification League is there, so please come check out all the exhibits. I just want to let you know who else is there. I have to look because I don't want to forget anyone. We also will have Bristow Bird Sanctuary and the Conservation Commission, Chris. The Mather Homestead, which is just on the edge of New Canaan and Darien. The New Canaan Land Trust, the library, the New Canaan Nature Center, the New Canaan Pollinator Pathway, Norwalk River Watershed Association, which has the western part of the Silver Mine River area, Planet New Canaan, the St. Mark's Gospel Garden, which raises produce for our local food bank, and Waveney Park Conservancy. So please come by. We'll be there from 9 to 3, and it's free. You can just come in and check it out and see how we're all working in the community. Thank you.
And if anybody wants to help us man the booth in the morning, we could use some people, so come see me.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Auld. Most of you know me. I wanted to introduce Bill, Chris, and John this morning. Robin introduced us to Bill McDonald last year, right when it was approaching the peak of Firefly season. We met with him right as dusk was falling on his property and the adjacent Firefly sanctuary. And it was magical. It was a very moving evening. First of all, Bill took us through everything that it takes to prepare and create a sanctuary for fireflies. And there's an inordinate amount of work. He had done this all by hand on his New Canaan property, and also on the Land Trust Sanctuary Preserve, or Firefly Sanctuary. It was magical, of course, because as dusk falls and all the fireflies begin to light up, you see hundreds of thousands of these creatures light up looking for a mate, and that's incredible. It was also, I think, a kind of a turning point for me because I started to understand what the real ecological science of stewardship is and what it means to preserve these creatures and create space for them. And so I think a lot of people see it this way. I'd always kind of looked at like the big giant velvety green lawn as this suburban crowning achievement. And it turns out, and Bill kind of put this into really understandable terms for us, but the velvety green lawn is also ecologically pretty dead. And I started to understand that there's a lot that we can be doing in terms of not spraying, not lighting, protecting our watersheds to create space. And so the real achievement for suburban life, I started to realize, is actually creating space for all types of life to thrive. And so it was an incredible evening. I think Bill is going to share a lot of the same science and the same magic with us today. When you guys visit, when we all visit the Firefly Sanctuary later this month, I think we will all be believers in this kind of magic. We would like to thank Chris and John from the New Canaan Land Trust for putting all of this together and for the work that they do to create space for magic in New Canaan every single day. We'd like to thank the Nature Center for giving us this space to learn, and also the Programs Committee, Angela, Janet, and the whole team for helping us learn every single month. So yeah, welcome, Chris, John, and Bill. Thank you guys so much for spending the morning with us.
Thank you, Laura. And where's Angela? Angela, thank you for helping us set all this up. She was terrific in helping us get all that organized. I'm John Winter. I am the Executive Director of the New Canaan Land Trust. I am here with Chris Schipper, board member from the Land Trust and the chair of the Conservation Commission, and Bill McDonald, who is our local firefly expert, more than local, regional, national, international firefly expert. He's going to edify you with all sorts of wonderful information about fireflies. And how fun is that we get to talk about this? Let me tell you a few minutes about the Land Trust. Been around since 1967. We do three things. We protect undeveloped land from future development. We take care of that land, and we prevent people from really kind of helping people understand what happens on the land, and we help people get out there to enjoy it. And that's really what today is about. We talk about fireflies. The Firefly Sanctuary, Chris is going to tell you a little bit more about it. We own 65 properties here in town. Some you're familiar with, Watson-Symington Preserve, Still Pond, Calhoun, a few other places where people walk their dogs and enjoy some time in nature. But the other part of our mission is the close to 50 or so properties that are all around you. Okay? Woodlands, meadows, wetland areas that we own and leave for wildlife habitat. You drive by them every day, there aren't signs around them and what have you. But they're there to make sure that there's always a place for the plants and animals that live amongst us to have a place to do what they do in the habitat that they enjoy. Okay? So, let me tell you just a few minutes about what we are going to be doing today. I want to tell you a little bit about the Firefly Sanctuary itself and the viewings that the Land Trust does. Okay? Between now and, Bill will tell you better, but the second week of July, okay, the Fireflies will begun to kind of do their maturation process and get out for us to see them. Okay? You can visit the Land Trust Firefly Sanctuary, which is on the entrance is on Sleepy Hollow, across from number 33, pretty much anytime you want, except for between June 25th and July 9th. So many people want to visit, okay? And for us to protect the habitat, that we limit it to about 30 people, okay? And you sign up online, okay, at our website, which is newcanaanlandtrust.org. And you sign up exactly 1 week before the day that you want to go. So let's just say you wanted to go on June 25th, the first day. Signups would be at 9 o'clock in the morning on June 18th. So exactly 1 week before, and you sign up for that day only. Okay? So the next day, June 26th, would be for the following week. Okay? For you folks, okay, we're going to do a special Firefly visit on June 22nd. Okay, for Beautification League, okay, which I will lead. Okay, we'll be meeting at the entrance on Sleepy Hollow Road. You'll see it. There's a white sign. I think probably you folks know the land trust signs, the big wooden signs on the white posts around our properties. So across from number 33. So park your cars along there. Carpool if you can. Okay, and just a couple things to remember. Okay, wear sturdy shoes. Okay, because you're going to be going uphill. Okay, we leave kind of at dusk. Okay, but you will be returning in the dark. Okay, we will provide you with flashlights to help you on your way down. It's about maybe 10-minute walk up to the meadow. Okay, so you will be walking along our nature trail. Then when you get to the meadow, there's a circular path along it with wood chips where you can view from pretty much any vantage point and kind of enjoy the evening. So we'll head out, probably around 8:30 or so, and we'll return about 10:30. But you can of course return whenever you want. Okay, but that's probably pretty much when the group will return. Okay. So as I said, June 22nd. That registration, however, is on your website. Okay, and Andrew can help you with that, with any more details around the June 22nd. Okay. So with that, I don't want to talk too long because we have a lot of fun information to share. I will turn over to Bill. He's going to kind of set the stage for the conversations that we're going to have over the next hour or so.
So, Chris Schipper worked with Channel 12 to put together a presentation that would be basically a documentary that could show the emotive quality of having Firefly displays. And this is it. And we'll play it right away.
Fireflies and summertime go hand in hand. While most see a few on their property, one New Haven man has close to 100,000. Photojournalist Andrew Christmas.
This is just amazing. Seems like everybody's turning on little flashlights. They're like a Christmas lights, and you just keep popping more and more. Keep popping in.
There is hundreds of thousands of fireflies. This may be the most concentrated display of fireflies in the world.
We live just a couple miles away. We have hardly any fireflies. I've never seen any before.
I've been raising fireflies for 40 years. There's no watering of any kind. There's no fertilizer or pesticides or herbicides. What you're seeing is the mating period at an end.
The males are up in the trees, flashing,
Blinking back and forth.
I guess if they like what they see,
They're breeding. They're easy. Males are on top, the babies are on bottom.
And it's as simple as that. It's an art. This is a renewal. It's everlasting life, coming back every year. For these insects, it's really the resurrection. They live for a year and they come back to life. And so there's this beauty associated with it. It's a wonderful thing.
I could probably watch this for another 10 minutes. Well, Bill McDonald, the property owner, tells us that he also grows spiders that certain fireflies like to eat to help attract them to the area. Okay.
That is totally made up by her. She never said that. And you can't actually attract fireflies at all. So a lot of people ask me that question. How do you attract a million fireflies? How do you do that? Well, the answer is you can't. They are actually born there. They live and mate there, and they die, and then the next generation is born there. So it's like being in a bottle, because the surrounding properties all use poisons. One other element of this, you know, the emotive quality is really what is going on with children. And I don't know if you, when you grew up, whether you had this kind of experience, but this is what it's like on the property. Warm summer nights with the children, that's really what it's all about. And what they do say all the time is, I got one. Towards the sky, and underneath them, you can see their silhouette. Yeah, there's a little bit of a crescent moon there. So that's really what it's all about, is the beauty of it, and the beautification. Lee knows that better than anyone else. You know, that's what you do every day. It really is about the joy that the children have, and the experience. If you were a child, and they will capture one and put it in a jar and have it blinking by the bit. That's, for me, that's the real experience. That's the joy of it.
I think Bill says it's about the child. I think for all of us, it's about the inner child. To see and experience that joy and wonder at what can happen in nature. I'm very happy to be here, but first I was going to do a special commercial announcement. Oh, here it is. Take a little break out there. I'm really pleased to be here. I think it was 10 years ago that I came and spoke to the Beautification League when I had just become president of the Land Trust. And I talked about our strategy of how we're going to grow property, how we're going to increase our membership, how we're going to protect land and make it available for visitation, and we were going to try to grow our awareness and our activities and our membership. And it was a special moment for me, and I was grateful to have a friendly audience at that time. Along with a number of objectives, we wanted to get to 400 acres, we wanted to get to $200,000 of donations, we wanted to get to 10% of the town of New Canaan as our membership. We wanted to get more professional. We wanted to eventually get an executive director. That worked, but we also wanted to figure out how we could get a permanent home. And we were in discussions about converting the Audubon property right here, the Audubon house, to become a home, but that failed. But I am pleased to announce today that we've just signed a contract to purchase and preserve the historic house at the top of Valley Road. It's wonderful to be able to say that in front of this group, and also to steal a little of John Winter's thunder in the process. But I do want to point out, and Libby is here, that when they threatened to demolish the building, Libby said, "I'll chain myself down in front of the house." I had offered to put Skip Hobbs up there, but Libby jumped in front. And so, you know, this was a community effort to save and protect this property. We are grateful to the help of the town of New Canaan and the first selectman for stepping in, because it's not a fair fight, a not-for-profit land trust trying to negotiate with a water company. But when the town of New Canaan comes in and says, "You guys should play nicely," that helps a lot. So we're delighted to say that we're in contract to acquire this property. And just one last little detail, to do it, the water company wanted to keep some of its acreage, but carve off about 2 acres of land for the land trust, and that 2 acres connects to our almost 11-acre Brown sanctuary. So we end up with a preservation of a historic property, which is a big win. We end up having a property connected to one of our probably most pristine land trust properties. We end up having a permanent meeting place for the land trust, and we end up having a permanent residence for our future and current executive directors of the land trust. So the goal of having your executive director live on campus, as we said, is a big one, particularly because John has to steward almost 400 acres, admittedly with great friends, but it's a lot to do, and commuting is not easy. So just like your minister lives in a vestry next to the church, or this is a great example, Bill Flynn, executive director of the Nature Center, lives here on campus. Mike Rowe lives on the country club. We now are in a position to have our executive director be with us here in New Canaan. So just a brief announcement. I would say I'm not sure, a kind of a gratuitous advertisement to let you know we will be reaching out for help and support from all our friends in order to complete this transaction.
That's our pitch.
That's the advertising section of today's meeting. I think we can. We can leave. Oh, shut up. The history of this Firefly sanctuary began when a land trust member approached me and said, you know, how do you guys go about preserving property? And the discussion ensued that there was this piece of land that was scheduled for development behind their home. And I said, well, you know, the first big step is to be able to get into negotiations with the owner of the property. And this neighbor said, well, I'll pledge a substantial sum of money if you can, you know, get this thing out of development so that I have a beautiful view out the back of my property. This is a classic case of someone wanting to do good and do well, in a sense, but not in a sense that it's financially remunerative. It's hard to do. With that support, we were interested because it adjoined an existing piece of land trust property, and whenever you can buy adjoining pieces, that's a strategic kind of imperative. With that in mind, I was able to approach another neighbor And that neighbor also didn't want to see development, so that neighbor kicked in. And then I was almost there, and I called up some guy, and I said, Bill, I need a little money in order to complete this purchase. And Bill said, well, come on by. And I came by, and he was ready with his checkbook. And with Bill's help, we were able to complete and cover the transaction costs of saving this property. It was a unique moment, and if I told you I knew what I was buying, I didn't. I simply knew that it was adjoining, it was undeveloped, it was sort of wet and messy, but it was a great opportunity to go forward. And so we completed something with the neighbors. It was a kind of a bargain purchase, but with neighborhood support. And it was at that point that I really got to know Bill, not just as a philanthropist, but as a Firefly friend, wizard, what have you. And he told me, he invited me over, he said, you know what you bought? And I said, well, I know we bought 4 acres for the land trust. He goes, no, this is, you have something really special here. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, come back in 9 months and I'll show you. You're out of the cycle. So all I can say is there is always a hidden joy of preserving land. You may not know it, you may not see it, but if you ever walk into a woods and you stumble off the path a little bit and you just see a beautiful little fern emerging, there are little moments like that. This one is sort of a great moment, and you know, we've learned that this may be the only private firefly sanctuary in the nation. There are public parks that have these, but this is, you know, an institution in a neighborhood. We're grateful, and I'm also grateful for Bill McDonald and his dedicated stewardship to making this such a great little viewing point, and nothing gives us more pleasure than entertaining the inner child of all of us. So with that, I hand it over to the fabulous friend of the Firefly Sanctuary, Bill McDonald.
Knowing that you all love perennials, I wanted to show people what it looked like year-round. Excuse me?
It's not on yet.
I'm about to start. So the property is just incredibly beautiful in terms of the flowers. So in order to raise this many fireflies, you have to do special things as it relates to the food chain for a firefly. And that's what this is all about. So this will be just playing in the background, but you'll be able to understand the beauty . Oddly, some people think this is ugly, you know, because they have lawns, but in order to raise a million fireflies, you need to raise asters. So you have very tall New York asters, 6 to 7 feet tall, New York ironweed. You'll see on my website, which my wife, Mary Ellen, had helped build. She's the brilliance behind the technology. It is true that I hid this from most people for 40 years. So we all had parties there, and it was always great fun. And then when it became public, obviously we wanted to make this a happening for everyone. And that's what it's all about. By the way, the artworks will be available through the Land Trust. What they'll be is giclées. You know, you can have very inexpensive, beautiful copies of artworks. And so I love the art that's emotive relative to what we do. Obviously fireflies, but the properties themselves are really pollinator pathway meadows. And so that's the best way to describe it. You know, they're pure in terms of the water flow. So in my case, I was able to acquire properties that are at the top of the watershed. So, you know, you can completely control the water, and that's the step number one. Obviously, if there are any light pollution issues, you can't have fireflies in a display. But we do that in basically 3 properties. Some, if you've ever been to the Thimble Islands in Stony Creek, Connecticut, we have another larger firefly sanctuary there. What we do there is a little different. It's we've been preserving the habitat and also restoring the habitat for reptiles and amphibians, and we raise different kinds of butterflies. So tiger tails, and what you see there is the monarchs as well. So there, you have to have a lot of Joe Pye weed, you have to have a lot of milkweed, because as a pollinator pathway, that's how you manage it. So in this material, if you ever wanted to have a firefly sanctuary, it describes kind of how you go about that. We're talking about the watershed. The ecotone is a term that ecologists use for the steps between habitat. So in this case, for fireflies, you have to have deciduous and pine trees that are bordering a meadow. And so you learn over time. I've owned this property for 50 years. And so you learn over time what works and what doesn't work. If you can get your neighbors to turn off their lights, great. But it really is true that people fear something's going to happen, and so they're entitled to have their protection, and for them, it's a spotlight, you know. But we have neighbors that have 55 spotlights, one in every tree, and it's on day and night. So it's left on, which unfortunately, from the standpoint of pollinated pathway, is a disaster. It's not just you don't get to see fireflies, it kills all the moths at night, because then predators kill the moths. So unfortunately, we're really fighting to make this work. So food chain is difficult to understand, and you really just have to perceive it by walking around the property and understanding. And fireflies eat just in the larva stage, so they're carnivores, and the fireflies themselves are not. Once they eclose, you know, they fly off as a beetle. As a larva, they're the top of the food chain. And what they eat is snails and slugs and some baby spiders and worms. They live underground for a year, and so when they come back up, they are eating snails. So you can only grow the fireflies, you can only raise the fireflies, if you're raising snails. So what's the snail's favorite food? You have to get what they eat, and so that's asters. So goldenrod and New York asters. It's a little complex, but over time you can kind of understand how it works and make the food chain work for the firefly. We don't do anything but cut it once a year. I also weed it so that it's not covered with invasives. But all the woods surrounding it, with the logs and the leaves and everything else, is left on the ground, because they're laying their eggs in the twigs and leaves and logs. The cutting of the meadow is once a year. And we got the land trust to begin cutting all their properties once a year. Right? So that was an issue that not a lot of people just don't understand. You know, if there aren't blossoms, how are you going to feed the native bees? You can't. And so it's kind of a surprise people that have fields, including the town of New Canaan, don't let them bloom, which is, you know, who knows why. You can't really get there. Maybe it's a bridge too far, but on your private properties and on land trust, you can make it happen in a way that's logical for the environment. I work with existing fireflies. I have a dozen different species of fireflies. So they have different blinking patterns that the male and female use to communicate. And at night, as you'll see this when you come, it's a little bit like high school. It's kisses and hugs in the dark. And it's really very emotive, you know. They can't hear each other. There's no voices. There's pheromones that they can go to a female in theory, but really it's all about the blinking patterns. And when you come, I'll be able to show you which blinking pattern works for which firefly. So you can identify a triple flasher, you can identify a femme fatale. You've probably heard the story, but there is a femme fatale. And so there's the female common firefly, which is a Photorus comet. She actually is a predator, and she's going streaking through, looking for the males of the other species to eat them. So she also has the ability to mimic the triple flash, the jay. She's a killer. But she's very beautiful, you know, so it's kind of an interesting story. There really is a certain amount of happiness there, and I hope you come and enjoy it. Thank you.
I think that we'd be happy to take some questions and any dialogue or comments you might have, so please take advantage if we've got an expert.
You know, you mentioned that the larvae eat snails, which was a big surprise to me when I read that. How big are the larvae?
The larva is about a quarter of an inch long or half an inch long. And what they look like are little dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They go like this, you know, round, and they're looking for something to eat, you know, all the time. They are also what you call blowbugs. So you probably heard the term, or if you've seen one in the field. Our property generally lights up with the larva also. So you can, at night, if you go out 11 o'clock or so, you can see the larva making tracks, trying to find a snail.
The larva line up also?
They do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're called a blowbug.
Were all the fireflies indigenous, or have you introduced other species?
In New Canaan, these are all natives. You know,
I think there's something like 400 or 4,000 different types of fireflies worldwide.
they don't all have bioluminescence. The ones that we're talking about today are the bioluminescence. And so some of them are dark. You know, they don't light up, but they look like a firefly.
When people come to see this and it's not June 22nd, do you give them any background or instruction, or are they just on their own looking?
You know, what we do is, there's a very good section on fireflies, which is similar to my website. My website is also connected to the Land Trust, and the Land Trust is connected to my website. So if you were to do registrations on the Land Trust website, it includes, you know, the material of what do fireflies do and how do you go about raising them, etc. So there is a lot of information available, but I think John will tell you a little bit more about it, and if I can, I will be there and describe and show you which species are which ones, you know?
And so the nights that we host, from the 25th to the 9th, there'll be a greeter, and it's usually me. And I spend a few minutes kind of talking about what you'll expect to see there and kind of the experience of enjoying the fireflies. It really is a sight, so if you can get there, it's terrific. But make sure you register. We have people, got an email the other day of a person, family coming from Utah to come see the Firefly Sanctuary. We had a family last year come from Atlanta, so word is getting out that this exists, and you can come and see it.
There are issues about that, and one of them is that the Rocky Mountain Preserve for fireflies, Smoky Mountain, receives 1 million visitors a year. And so I knew that going in, that, you know, you'd have a lot of people traipsing through. You know, it'll have to be controlled, and the Land Trust is doing a fantastic job in scheduling everything, and so it hasn't been a problem at all. But recognizing that, you know, there is, once you know about it, a lot of demand. In the Rocky Mountain, in the Smoky Mountain, they have to bus people in from 10 miles away. So it's that kind of an event.
And one thing I did want to say before I forget, Angela reminded me before, if you come, okay, when you get home, just check yourself for ticks. Okay, so please remember to do that. It's a busy year, what we're finding out already. So
The trails are mowed so that it's not going to be high enough for, you know, to get ticks in general. But you should wear long pants and if possible socks, you know.
I assume if it rains, it would be canceled then, or does it rain or?
You know, the fireflies don't fly in rain.
Okay.
And they won't light up in a full moon. So any kind of light pollution, like a moon, or if there was a heavy rain, there'll be no fireflies. They're underneath the leaves, you know, shooting by.
yeah, and if there's bad weather, we'll let you know if we're not going that night.
So you were saying that you can't attract fireflies, that they're kind of already there, so.
Right.
So is there any, how do you get them?
So, this property is unique. And so since I've been able to raise fireflies elsewhere, I know it's possible, but the conditions have to meet these standards, you know, and it's not easy. So, it's a situation where this property had never been touched, right? So it's never had any chemical pollution of any kind. Our house was the glass museum for the Van Gerbeck estate, and the entire property was their gardens. So the loam's, you know, 18 inches. It's a unique thing, and at least in the case of McCain, at the moment it's become fireflies in a bottle. They cannot move out and they cannot move in. It is what you see. I have been able to transport when I need to fireflies from one place to another, because I can tell you what a pregnant firefly looks like. So I can package. So I can actually package them up. I can collect them
And release them.
move them from one place to another.
Bill's point about they're in a bottle has to do with how the neighbors manage their property. So it's almost like a fence line of mowed lawns and chemical spray. So that's sort of the compressing factor. Bill did mention then, that one of the keys is, no pesticide, no herbicide. You have to live with what you get when you do that, which is this diversity, bugs, insects, and everything. That's the food chain. That has to start there. So it's a great point.
You mentioned that they live there and they lay their eggs there. Where do they lay their eggs?
In the ground itself, and in fallen trees, and under piles of leaves.
Sort of in the detritus of what's falling down, and that's composting in place.
And they actually go underground for 1 to 2 years. Depends on the species.
We get a lot of them actually. Maybe because we don't use pesticide or anything in our land, but in the summertime, they really.
And where is yours?
I live in the silver mine area.
Oh, okay, good, yes.
So speaking of neighbors and chemicals, what can we say to neighbors who are spraying chemicals that blow into our yard and affect our
Please stop.
It blows my mind that that you can't do something about toxic chemicals coming.
Pesticides.
Very hard.
Yeah.
We've had some success in approaching them and suggesting that they tone down their lighting or turn off their lighting, at least for this 3-week period.
The only thing that's worked for me is to bring the people in and show them a night of fireflies. And I've had some remarkable examples where people have said, okay, now I get it, and I'm not going to spray. But the unusual thing about it is that, let's use Roundup as an example. Glyphosate is an absolute killer, and it's been proven in court, and they've just been fined $11 million. And unfortunately, it kills everything. So it kills children, it kills the dogs. It's unfortunately a real poison. So it's an interesting story that it's possible that people would prefer a manicured lawn to a healthy environment, but that's the truth. And so a lot of people are fearful of mosquitoes. You've probably seen Joe the mosquito, advertising or whatever. And unfortunately, that kills all the fireflies as well. And not just next year. It's like now they're dead.
Right.
And that's what as Bill said before, the efforts between the land trust. Where's Robin doing a terrific job with the pollinator pathway and continuing kind of to share information with the community about what you can do on your own properties. And together, we getting to the point where people are kind of understanding the impacts of their decisions and maybe choosing different.
That's a pretty good point. In a way, that's a little bit why our two organizations kind of share a little spirituality. I always say we're in the land appreciation business. We look at it from a nature standpoint or from a beauty standpoint. We just need to get that message out to more people. It won't be universal, but if we can get 5% of the town, maybe 7%, 10%, we sort of make a difference. And we always say we came here because we love the look of this town and the feelings and the woods and the fields and the meadows. We just need to continue to promote that kind of thinking and say there are wonders out there if you just stop and look. So,
Somebody had another question.
I remember when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts, the town at night around summertime had these trucks driving around and spewing these clouds of smoke and the streets, that DDT. So we used to get on our bikes and we'd ride right behind the truck. It was amazing.
We can see the effect now.
What about the professional landscaping community? Are they getting more educated? I know there are some people that advertise their shops, as it were, about
they're green or something. Not, not meaningfully yet. There really isn't anybody doing it, in a responsible way. That may change. That may change.
I think it is changing. There's a group in Greenwich that's got an advertisement up and it says, "Smell grass, not gas." And it's a landscape that's going all electric, and so you can see that people are starting to step into the space of organic or natural management. So it's not the big wave, but if there is a wave, it starts with land trusters and beautification league and gardeners who start to say, no, I really care about the diversity of what I'm promoting and the biodiversity. The land trust does have a thought at some point to be able to do a property audit, and the audit would be what's the property, Bill uses the term ecotone, what's your property conservation value? In other words, percentage of lawn, the amount of water usage, the biodiversity, the number of mature trees. These are things that could be kind of in a scale or a rating to say, this is a gold star conservation property, and this is a D, kind of thing of, all lawn and beautifully manicured, but it's not of a conservation value, it's at an entertainment value or a presentation value kind of a game. It's a thought.
How about promoting using goats?
Yeah. Well, if you can make sure your goats don't wander off your property.
So if you've ever been to Killingworth, Connecticut, we bought the property on the top of the mountain, and so it's protected, and it's 20 acres, but overall it's 1,000. So it's a beautiful property filled with goats, and so we enjoy all the cheeses and everything that we make, and that's a fantastic property.
Gee?
What about this term, no mow may? Where did it come from? And what good is that following that?
I think it's in English.
What's
I
that?
think it came out of England.
Okay.
The concept of no mow May, and it's now going to no mow May, June, July. And it's really, on your way to meadow.
The
No
meadow
mow
is
May is the
cut.
first step towards getting towards the meadow.
The meadow was cut, basically after the first hard frost. So all the creatures are in the ground, they're still alive. That's the concept. So we really only cut it once a year. We do take invasives out by hand, but it's managed to be 6 feet high. Big meadow.
A group that might be good for you to present to today is newcomers. We've invited newcomers at the garden, and because of the past 2 years of real estate boom, so many of those new people have no idea what's in their yard, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's there, and you see the truck, mosquito spray, tick spray, and it's right next door. So that might be a group to reach out to.
Yeah.
Where is the Fingal Islands? Or Stony Creek? Where in Stony Creek?
It's Brantford, Connecticut,
Yeah.
and Guilford, New Haven.
But where, I know Stony Creek.
Oh, good.
Where is it? in
Oh, well,
Stony
that's
Creek?
an interesting story. So only the land trust has been invited to the property. So only the board members of the land trust come. And we'll be opening it up probably this year for the first time. So it's attached to the land trust property. It's over 1,000 acres. So it's a beautiful place. It's 12 acres with ponds and vernal pools. So it's a magnificent, piece of property. I've lived there all my life, and we have houses on the water, and this house that's in the woods, sort of thing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to promote the intersection of 123 and Parade Hill, where the meadow is just gorgeous right now. And they mowed around the edge some, so you can walk. If you go up close and personal, you really get the effect. You have to be very careful because cars come zipping around off of
Yeah.
123, but you can park at the bottom of Heritage Hill if you're not walking and just savor it. It's really very special right now.
Excellent.
Is there a healthy balance between ecological living and concerns with like West Nile and Lyme disease, and how do we all get along?
It's a great question, because, you know, when we first started to open up the properties of the land trust, it was, you know, people are gonna get Lyme disease and things like that. It's very difficult to kind of say that there's a black and white here. As you say, where's the balance in life? The joy of walking through a meadow is so great that if you do take some simple precautions like socks and pants and maybe a little spray down at your ankles, and then, you know, at the end of the day, throw everything in the wash, take a shower or whatever, you're going to get a little more confident. So, you know, we all walk in the risk of that, but we take simple precautions. And I think there's just a general societal goal to eliminate all risk, and i.e. sanitize everything so that it's chlorinated or whatever. But, you know, walking in nature is going to expose you to this diversity. And I was lucky. I grew up with parents who said, you know, go roll in the dirt. You know, here's a stick. Come back in 3 hours.
It builds up your immune system.
Pardon? So they said, yes, eating dirt.
I'm just saying, living in Connecticut, you're at risk. Even if you don't walk in the woods, and you know, if you have a property that has any kind of, you know, gardens, whatever, ticks are there, and you just have to be aware of, you know, look out for the ticks, spray your ankles, as you said, and be conscious of any strange rashes that you might get.
Yeah, but, and also, you know, wear socks.
Yeah.
Over your pants. So, you know, that's really the best, because then, you know, you can control it. I actually have suits, you know, that are made for chemicals, you know. And I wear those. So when I'm working in the high field, I have to do that, and then you just take that off and leave it by the door.
I just wanted to share a magic moment that I had with Fireflies since moving to New Canaan. I had installed some very low voltage, I think they're called photovoltaic portable things you just stick in the ground, illuminate the pathway. And I was sitting in my garden at around 9 o'clock in probably June, and all at once the lights came on, and so did the fireflies. And it was magical.
Yeah, I mean, good point. There probably were down lights, you know.
They're just really
shaded, low lighting.
Really low.
Or
and
yellow.
They happened to come on at the same instant that I was lucky enough to see fireflies in my garden.
Do you think you'll have do you see a seasonal variation in the number based on we had that drought last summer?
That's a really good question. We're all fearing that, you know, there was desiccation of the eggs after the fireflies laid the eggs. And they lay them in debris, you know, but if it's terribly dry, then what happens? We'll find out in about a week, you know, 2 weeks.
Also back to the balance and the fear of tick-borne diseases and mosquito-borne diseases. I mean, we worry about that, I worry about that, but we also have all the concerns that the chemicals cause diseases in long term. I think it's easier and safer feeling to worry about something as simple as Lyme disease. Not that it's simple,
It's not
wrong.
simple.
It's not simple, but don't get me wrong. It's easier to think about than cancer or lymphoma. So we'd rather focus on preventing that than preventing long-term cancer is what
I take a lot of precautions, you know, all the time, from ticks. And so actually, I take that suit off, you know, and I put it by the door. And I don't see any ticks on it. But the next day, you see that there's a tick now on the wall right next to where you had that.
That happened to me last week.
And I recommend that anybody working, you all work, in, you know, in a meadow, basically, some of the places where you're making your flower beds. And it makes sense to distribute these tick suits, which are, do you wear them? Do you have them? I'll make some available for people if they want, but, they're used basically for chemical, some spraying Roundup or whatever, and they're like a chemical suit, but they reach all the way down to your socks. You can hold the socks over, and nothing can get in. So,
I'll add one more plug to how you can manage that. If you have a lot of bird life, birds eat ticks. So there's an advantage of that using the natural points. And in fact, 100 years ago, that's why the Bird Migratory Act and things like that came up, because birds were seen to be a way to prevent insects from taking over crops. So if you had birds, they would eat the insects and the food chain would survive. Same thing here, which is you have a lot of birds flying around your gardens. They're looking for food, not only from your feeder. The feeder might contribute 10% of their diet, but in the meantime, they're out there looking, turning leaves over and looking for something.
it's actually a very good point. I didn't realize that you all didn't get tick suits, because you have to have tick suits. You're working with flowers, and sometimes in a meadow, whatever. You have to wear a tick suit. I do it all the time.
Can I just thought of something, maybe crazy, but tell me if you think it would work. You know those tall white kitchen bags, those plastic bags? If we put them on like you would put, like over everything, do you think that would help?
It's a level of protection.
And then just roll it back down.
Yeah, the white ones are good because you can see them.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking the white might be good. Okay.
These tick suits, what I call them, tick suits, there's made by DuPont, and they're very inexpensive. Everybody should be wearing them, honestly.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but how long did tick lives? If, let's say it's a horse clothing when you come in.
Oh, you mean a tick? A tick can live a very long time, long enough to get you every time. They'll just crawl around inside your house until they get you. No question about it.
And they have radar that will find you.
Talking about your tick suit, inexpensive, tie-dye, almost disposable type suits.
That's right.
People are looking for.
So, we should communicate on the tick suits. They're very inexpensive. They should be made available to every member. Absolutely.
Maybe put it on the website.
When you see them out there, it's like a spaceman.
No, really, the organization should buy them for the members. That's just very clear. If you want to wear them.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Laura, thank you for your